Falcher, welcome. And as I said, today we're going to be hearing a bit about the work of Equal Adventure and listening to how communities and community research is developing inclusive green and blue health opportunities with disabled people in the north of Scotland. Just to set the space a wee bit, our network values focus on equity, inclusivity, collaboration, respect, and integrity. And what that means in practice is that we want to make sure, of course, the space is respectful. Do look after yourself. If life is happening, feel free to step away, or if there's something that you prefer to not take part in, that's absolutely fine. We've turned on auto captioning, but if you want to toggle that off, you're very welcome to. Some folks love it, some people hate it. One of our key values as a network is around language and appreciating that people are coming from lots of different spaces as community members, people with lived experience, practitioners, researchers, policymakers. And so we have our jargon jar, which Natalia will put in the chat. And this is one of the ways that we just, if there's something that's been said that you're not quite sure the meaning, or you think there might be a different meaning than you understand, you can add it there. And it's a useful reflective tool for us as we have these types of conversations. Of course, we want it to be an open space, so please do. There's going to be plenty of time for questions and just discussion at the very end. But if there's any questions as we're going along, please throw them into the chat. And if there's any tech issues, just Natalia's on the call to give you a wee hand as well. Just bearing in mind of sharing the space and being aware of what we're sharing. Obviously, we're talking about themes around mental health and just being maybe aware of what we're sharing as well. And obviously, feel free to join it and as you see fit. And then we are recording today. What tends to happen is we just share the recording of the presentation rather than the question and answers afterwards. And so just so you're aware, the recording will be shared with the network as well and then publicly on YouTube afterwards for those who couldn't join us. And I know there's a few folks who've registered just for the recording as well. So just so you're aware of that. But once we get to the Q&A part and the discussion, we might keep recording just for note-taking purposes, but that won't actually be shared on the kind of the edited version, as it were. So just so you're aware of that. And then just for those of you who might be new to Community Knowledge Matters, we're a network supporting community-led research. We have a lot of these online spaces. We have forums, online kind of digital sharing space, community practices, and a lot of our work is advocating for more equitable community-led and based research that informs practice and policy. And of course, we do that through these types of events, resources, and training as well. So welcome. I'm going to hand over to Cam and Suresh now to take over and share with us about the work that you're doing. So take it away. I will allow you to share your screen. I'm going to pin you both. Oh, I should have mentioned as well, just before you kick off, if you'd like to introduce yourself in the chat, please do. It'd be always useful to hear who you are, where you're coming from, and if there's anything in particular interested in from today as well, just whilst obviously Cam and Suresh are getting going. But yeah, take it away. Thanks.
Brilliant. Thanks very much, Lewis. So my name's Suresh. I'm the founder and principal advocate for Equal Adventure. I'm going to be doing the first part of this presentation and passing over to Cam, who's the magician behind the camera and gathering all of the beautiful images. Next slide. So Equal Adventure is really a game of two halves and is working with Cameron Mackay Productions as part of this project. So the Equal Adventure bit is basically a not-for-profit and then a charity, and the project's being undertaken by the charity but is supported by the technical resources of the not-for-profit. And the Equal Adventure not-for-profit designs and makes and sells adventure sports equipment with disabled people, and we make about 500 bits of adaptive equipment to make adventure sports and expeditions and getting outdoors more meaningful with disabled people. And part of the reason why we have a charity is because often when you're designing things and making things, the knowledge that you gain from doing the work is actually almost like you're taking taking the knowledge from the community. And so the whole essence of equal adventure in terms of kind of having a charity that gives back to the community that then feeds the not-for-profit, etc., is very much part of the kind of knowledge matters and ideas fund ethos. Next slide, please, Cam. And so there's so really we've got some theory. So we our kind of model of change are is really that comes from partially from my PhD really is that inclusion in the outdoors is within a social mess, and that often safe and meaningful inclusion is really about untangling that social mess. And I kind of think about it as trying to find the bits of spaghetti in the sauce and then tease them out without breaking them and then wiping them off and then kind of drying them out and then putting them back in the packet straight, as long as they decide they want to go back in the packet. And then there's sort of a set of wicked problems that need to be resolved, either pulling the spaghetti, trying to decide whether it needs to go back in the packet or whether it wants to be cleaned off or partially cleaned off or whatever. There's a bit, it's quite poetic. And then the information that we need to do to be able to untangle that those social mess and tame the wicked problems to make include safe and meaningful inclusion happen within pretty much any setting is sticky. And what that means is it doesn't travel well between communities of practice. And as I think with a lot of the people in this network, it's all about partnership and it's all about different types of practitioners or community members participating together and collaborating. And so as it said, for the as Lewis said in the beginning, different things have different meanings. So we understand that as being sort of sticky information. And then obviously there's this kind of set of values that we have, which is people, planet, process, profit. We are process driven slightly because we use process to try and help us maintain our integrity, and that's not just one process, but continuously thinking about our process and then also the delivery of what we're going to do. So there's some impact. Next slide, please, Cam. So I kind of it's for me it's community led, definitely. That's the I in the middle. And sometimes the bit at the bottom feels like it's knitting steam together because and I guess when we started this project I found it quite difficult because as a someone who goes from direct engineering and research and development in an engineering setting to doing stuff in a social setting, my elastic band gets a bit tired because I go from the fluff to the straight lines and the sharp edges or the soft edges, etc., etc. But so the next is on the right hand side. Sorry, if you go back one, sorry, it's Cam, that's my bad. The next on the right hand side, you'll say that we over the past 30 years, I think Equal Adventure can probably say that we've got a training solution or a piece of equipment that would be able to make inclusive adventure accessible and safe and meaningful, regardless of someone's functional requirement. And so this project really allows us to illustrate the kind of so what do you do next? And part of the intention is really to kind of support the development of communities so they can develop their own active lifestyles in the green and blue setting and have an impact in their day-to-day living. So that's the D to D and the A to L. So those are our sort of three things. One we've got in the bag, and the next two at the bottom, AL and active lifestyles and day-to-day living in a community setting. That's what we're trying to do. Next slide, please, Cam. So our approach really is kind of it really builds on a number of things. So I've talked a little bit about the equipment and training that we do. Yeah, that we build in Granton on Spey. We have a full factory that works to ISO 9001. We also bring in our sort of back pocket long history of running inclusive expeditions and field work with people like the Royal Geographical Society, and have been part of driving the standard processes around knowing how to run inclusive field work and expeditions So there's an international standard called BS 8848 that we're part of in terms of trying to make that accessible. We then have also been involved with Sport England and a little bit with Sport Scotland to drive up standards in fitness and the gym environment. So in terms of making a standard so that any gym can be accessible, truly accessible, and that's EN 957-I. And then outdoor play, working with the Forestry Commission down in England mainly to help. This is back in the early 90s, I think, to basically make it possible for individuals to play better and do inclusive fitness outdoors. And then the final bit, part of the reason, if you go to the next slide, I don't know whether I've got a slide in there, Cam. Yeah, no, sorry, I'll go back one. So then the part of the reason why some people won't have heard of Equal Adventure, certainly between about 2000 nine, yeah, 2004 to 2014, or maybe a bit later, was that, or just before the pandemic, was that we've got a long history of working with wounded, injured, and sick service personnel. So our focus was supporting the Royal British Legion and providing them with technical advice and support as part of the Army capability recovery. And in some ways, it's this history of equipment, understanding how to do inclusive logistics, raising the bar with regard to fitness in the built environment, and raising the bar in terms of what fitness could be and active lifestyles could be in outdoors, and also the superb job that the Army Capability Recovery do with wounded, injured, and sick service personnel that we're bringing into a community setting. And I do recognise that there's massive holes in provision and practice across all of those fields, but there's a lot of great work that we're trying to bring into this project. Next slide, please. So the aim and objectives of this project, yeah, next slide, is really to kind of bring an interdisciplinary research philosophy and bring the community-based participatory action research that's so prevalent and positive within the Ideas Fund community and Knowledge Matters community, and try to create a framework so that the community that Equal Adventure is working with and advocating with, which is individuals with spina bifida and hydrocephalus in the north of Scotland, are able to kind of have a way of representing themselves. And there's a reason why Cam and I are presenting the data or the findings, is because the community champions have asked us to do the presentation, because one of the contexts of some of the community members that we're working with or supporting is that we're using video with Cam support to be able, so that the community members who have challenges with memory and challenges with kind of communication can use video to be able to help them remember what their aspirations were, and so that the videos can either be used as support for the funder, yeah, and that's great, but they're agreed that that video ethnography is used to be able to present the story that is agreed by the community back to the funder. And the Ideas Fund are fantastic at that, because they really understand that, and not all funders do. So that, and then, but also using the video to try and help the community set the next goal or the next discussion point. So in between things, so this is what you said last time. This is you on camera. What would you say now? Yeah. So that if there's any sort of sense of forgetting what you said last week or in the last session, then that video sets the place marker so that the next bit of thought can happen. And it's not, we're trying to avoid that gaslighting that can so often happen, where we're representing back to the community what they said, but it's actually the film is representing that back. Next slide, please, Cam. So that's really been a sort of standard action research cycle of plan, action, analyze, conclusion, but that's very much with the community, trying to get them to then, and then playing the films back and saying, does that feel like something that represents what you want to say? Next slide, please. And so, yeah, so then there's a sort of define, plan, action, analyze, yeah, and then sort of record and background, yeah. Okay, next slide. And so there's a sort of planning with the community, and then what that looks like is planning with the community, action in the community, with the community, and then a conclusion of what the community want to do. Yeah, and these, I'm sure these slides, the video is going to be available. So what I think we've been able to do, certainly with Cam's help, is being able to try and bring the video ethnography and the community-based participatory action research into a way of working for us that works in quite a practical, low-key way, and the methodology doesn't become the research, the community becomes the research, rather than having such a complicated research methodology or around or group around the community that it will in certainly in one of the phases before this phase of the project, we had so many people involved that it was almost like the research was the phenomena. Yeah, and so actually just having a lot now we've really got started having a lower key, or just Cam and myself working with some support staff, really helps keep the research very light and fluffy. That's not a very professional term, but light and fluffy, so that actually the voice of the community really comes through. Next slide, please. So what that looks like in practice is really just a standard set of social science methods, from everything from semi-structured interviews in the setting. So one of the things we're very mindful of is trying to do things in action, not after action. So any of these methodologies, from participant observation through to transits, which is walking with people, and taking notes, or semi-structured interviews or interviews, it's all done in the context, so that the individuals are in the community are able to draw from the context and say what they need to say. But that's just a lot of in practice that can feel like a lot of standing around and feel like a spare part while people get on and do the activity, and then asking very short bits of questions that are very focused to get the conversation or the interview going, and then seeing where that goes, and then standing around again and trying to observe and seeing what the next intention might be from the action. Next slide, please, Cam. So yeah, I think this is, and then we pass over, Cam, I'll pass over to you, because this is really to your bit, to add your filmy bit.
Okay, cool. Thank you so much, Suresh, and such a joy to be able to kind of be here and chat. So, just kind of into also to frame the film stuff, we were talking about using participatory action research, and I'm very aware that there's a great primer kind of review article that was just sitting out printed next to me. So I thought to frame what I'm saying, it might be worth just looking at to draw on what Suresh has said, and this is for anyone interested. Flora Cornish's article from 2023 on participatory action research. So, when you look at this, the four key principles of it are authority of direct experience, knowledge and action, research as a transformative process, and collaboration through dialogue. And building on what Suresh just said, this is also valuable. And what this article also acknowledges is that the people experiencing an issue, people who have that lived experience of a societal problem, absolutely deserve to be the ones that are in total control of the interventions that happen to their communities. So, learning from Suresh, who's the one that introduced me to this process, that was the whole backbone to bringing film in as a methodology. Now, the reason that we were able to do that was to see the participants in the community, the community researchers, as our co-creators alongside all of this. We're bringing a little bit of research expertise, film expertise, maybe. They're bringing their own skills and their knowledge of the community. So together, the film was able to observe and gather materials in a way that otherwise you might not be able to. You're working with a camera, you're following people through that observational process. You see them encounter things. Take, for example, accessing an outdoor space. That film content following these folks trying to get to a beach. You're passing fences, gates, uneven terrain, transfers from road to path. All of these things can pose access challenges. So the film was able to get that. Now, the data and analysis, we were able to capture both interviews and also off the cuff comments and dialogue with the participants, conversations that happen naturally on camera through bringing them into the process in an inclusive way, which allows their ideas, their direct knowledge, and their direct emotional experience to be captured in a way that doesn't have to be translated into a kind of artificial framework of Western academia. We could just have direct to the discussion process. And the goal of this all is democratizing research. I don't know about yourselves, my experience of research, some of it's really, really positive. Some of it is really challenging because you can see that the only way a community has their voice is when that voice is translated into that of an elite academic voice. So to me, this is a really exciting methodology to use for that reason. Now, another huge aspect of this is the idea of offering direct value. I mean, I'm sure we can all think of the timescales when academic research is done. When does that community see the outcome of that research? Is it when the paper's published? Is it when the policy comes into place? It could be years, by which point the community have given up hope of seeing that. So the approach we have comes from an organization called Doc Society, who have an impact planning framework for documentary films. Now, putting our co-creation ethos at the start of that, what this allows us to do is to create an impact goal with the community that informs every single decision that's made after that. So in this case, we were able to have meetings with the community members in the first place for them to design these impact goals. And then for, myself as a filmmaker, they're the client. They have given me a direction. I'm using my skills to support their own narrative and their goal where possible and where desired, including them in the film process. But the thing to be wary of here, I think for me, a lot of the time the approach I've taken in the past was participatory filmmaking. Everybody gets a camera, which is great. But that's not always what the community actually need. So for me in this, it was really thinking, right, well, when do I actually have to just keep quiet and do my job as a filmmaker? And when am I sharing that methodology with others, if that makes sense? So we based everything on an impact goal. For an example, one of them was to encourage more people who are living with disabilities in the community to engage with the resources on offer to access the outdoors. So it was a kind of marketing, recruitment, and future activities, which then every single deliverable was about that. Obviously, there was more to it. There was sharing the methodology with others. There was trying to promote the use of participatory action research, and on a national level, trying to showcase what's possible for outdoor access when the correct funding and interventions are put in place. So, what outputs were there here? There was a summary film, a short film that was able to be used to communicate the message quite simply. There was personal video diaries, that interview, dialogue, that real kind of off-the-cuff conversations that come out to represent that authentic emotion. There was a research film, a film that really documented the story of that research in a really engaging way that would be able to be engaged with by other academics to see the story of how this research was implemented. And then, crucially, social media clips for community use. Now, these are a great tool at directly inspiring those bits of engagement, sign up, storytelling for that community and their assets that they could access for that. So, in terms of filming, now this is the kind of how does this work in practice? So, I think a crucial part is being mobile and self-shooting in the sense that you've got to just be ready to just get up and run. You don't want your filming to ever, say you're doing a documentary or stuff I've done in the past is very much you've got a call sheet. You've created the schedule of the day around filming. And you're, the classic thing. Could you just do that walk across that again? Can you walk up that sand dune? Can you wheel up that path again so we can get the shot? This was the opposite. It was completely being a fly on the wall, but that allowed what played out in front of the camera to be so authentic. And it was making sure that story of inclusive access from, vehicle dismount to transferring to things like the all-terrain wheelchairs, the bomber, and accessing that green or blue space, a beach, a forest, and to make sure every part of that was captured so that as an audience member, be you disabled or non-disabled, you're able to understand what you would go through. Now, with everything, ethics, care, and safeguarding are so important. I think it's something that Lewis touched on before, that bringing these issues up, we're talking about mental health, we're talking about, disability. That's sensitive topics. And whilst people are so incredibly generous and sensitive with their own stories, how as a filmmaker do you not just be extractive and think, well, that was a great emotional bit of insight you shared, that's going in the film, where actually we need to think a bit more carefully about that co-creation. What benefits you to be shown and what maybe doesn't need to be showcased widely. But through working with people and having that impact goal, we were able to together co-produce what our emotions come across and create something that community members are really proud of. Um, and but overall, these are films about place, the place of the people that are on camera. And one tool that was really exciting to be able to be used was through, a lot of the work that I do is also in folk music. And I know Lewis is a fantastic Ceilidh band musician as well. So this hopefully will be a point shared across many people on the call. But when you go to kind of more, well, especially across the Highlands and Islands, each location has an incredible heritage of music, folk tunes, folk fiddle tunes and things. So being able to include them in the films too, hopefully, can really make it something that is truly of a community and not just something that's presented by an external voice. So overall, Suresh has touched on a lot of this, but we were able to really bridge problems that we were noticing here, especially in how we get the message out into platforms that are useful to people and how we were able to give people the time they needed to engage. So to finish, I would love to just present a little bit of a case study with you all. Suresh, can I just double check with you the order that we agreed on for this? Was it Lucy's bit first, or was that to come after the other two bits?
Whatever way works, whatever's in the slides, Cam.
Okay, cool, cool,
We
great.
can always cycle back to whatever the questions are. It's
Yeah,
easy peasy.
brilliant. So we had a really incredible co-creator with us, Lucy Turnbull, and her voice really allowed us to shape a lot of the value of what was in here. And she was not, as Suresh said, not able to be here herself, but has given us a wealth of information to share from this. And you'll read the quote here. I'm not going to, read it all out, but some points that I think were really valuable from her was that being engaged, and she's a champion, so she's working with us as a presenter to give her skill set to representing these communities and from the perspective that she has. And excuse me, she's saying she's feel happy, alive, excited. There's the adrenaline buzz, sense of accomplishment, and there's a message of you can do it. You need to find your own way to do it, find the right support, but you've got this to other people who have disabilities that mean that when they access the outdoors, there's considerations to be made. And I think the lovely point here is she found it in herself that she's not on the sidelines of life of these activities. She herself is in it. And we'll come back to a little moment with her at the end. But there's two videos now that I'd love to share that showcase some of this in action. The first one being on Lochinch and looking at how we can access water bodies.
Today we have been discussing with each other how best it would be for a person with my disability, my restrictions, to get on board this kayak safely, comfortably, without putting myself at risk and also the person attending at risk. The equipment that's been provided to assist me to comfortably and safely get on to this paddleboard, it's simplistic. It's just basically two little stools of varying heights, and for each disability, you can grade your entry to the paddleboard. You might just need one or two, or possibly even three. This opportunity to get out on the water, you just switch off and you just enjoy what you're doing. You can push yourself to as hard as you need to. Coming here and being shown that my disability still isn't restricting me from doing what I would like to do. It's shown it's not impossible. I could still do it. And that has it's reopened my eyes back to when I was a teenager and nothing would stand in my way. Today has meant quite a lot to me, actually, more than I thought it would be. It's probably been about 35 years since I was last out on a paddleboard like this, or a canoe type thing. And it's bringing back good memories. because unfortunately with my disability I've changed quite a lot since then, and I didn't think I'd find it possible to do it, and Suresh made it much more easy to get onto. I wouldn't say I was hindered in any way.
So huge thank you to Murray there for sharing his insights and for his amazing presenting, whilst also being on a paddleboard on Loch Inch. So really doing a lot of jobs at once there. I'm wary of time, so I'm just going to skip to the final bit of content that I'd like to share from
Today,
today, and that's a video that Lucy asked to be included alongside this quote. And to give it a bit of context, this, I think one of the real values that she put out and she discussed about engaging with these activities, not to put it in different words that aren't her own, but in lieu of her being here, and especially relating to this, it's given me the chance to, for her, the chance to be herself, to feel confident and feel proud of what she can do. It feels like this is me and this is who I'm meant to be. That's something that doesn't just exist in the outdoors. That's a feeling that she fortunately is able to carry beyond that. So there's a video of her with her mum in the car post one of these activities singing that she's asked to share because this, for her experience, showcases perfectly the feeling that she's gained from being able to access the outdoors. So in her, maybe not words, in her singing, this is Lucy's take on it all here, which you'll just see in just a moment. Featuring some lovely Skippenish music there. So just to kind of finish by just saying a huge thank you. So many different stakeholders, funders, collaborators, and pals along the way made all of this possible along several different trips. So yeah, I wouldn't read them all out, but you can see some great names there. And obviously a huge thank you to Science Kaylee, Wellcome Trust, for all of their support too. So